How's it going, everyone? So today we're going to talk about the possibility we could see a snowstorm next week for portions of the Northeast as well as potentially the Southeast, where we do have two of the most reliable computer models forecasting at least some sort of nor'easter to develop into next week. We're going to need to see if that continues towards that scenario. But first, let's take a look at the GFS model to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about here. So, of course, we have this Clipper system that's currently moving through the Northeast that's expected to bring snow showers right over mostly the interior Northeast where it's cold enough. And not only that, the winds will be quite strong where we do have wind advisories in effect thanks to this pressure gradient between this ridge and this low. So make sure to be prepared for anywhere between 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts tomorrow, which should bring down those wind chills to where you definitely won't be used to it, as you probably haven't seen or felt temperatures that cold probably since last winter. So make sure to prepare accordingly for tomorrow, mainly due to wind chills. And in the interior Northeast, watch out for a large area of light to moderate snow showers. I'll say the general range in a lot of these areas will be around 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, maybe localized areas where it's a little bit more than that. And of course, right along the Great Lakes, that's where you should expect a heavier amount of snowfall. We won't be talking about inches of snowfall, potentially feet of snowfall associated with this Clipper system moving through. So definitely keep that in mind right up along the Great Lakes. However, beyond that point, we're going to see the temperatures warm up for the eastern half of the United States. We will eventually see this ridge move further eastward, and that'll allow more of the southerly flow to take over much of the eastern United States, which I'm sure for many of you guys, that'll be very welcome because it's been very cold the past several days thanks to this pretty significant jet stream dip that's been parked right over the eastern United States. That's expected to change thanks to the position of this ridge bringing a strong southerly flow, and in fact we could see rain out of this, which is definitely very welcome, I'm sure, for a lot of these areas, especially right around the Great Lakes where you've just been getting pounded by lake effect snow. However, you're probably wondering, where's the possibility we're going to see snowfall? Because this looks like entirely a rain event. While yes, this specific storm system looks like a rain event, or likely will be, pretty much guaranteed it's going to be entirely a rain event. However, the storm system after that could be a different story because we do have a small upper level low that's coming off the Rocky Mountain ranges, and eventually it should dip pretty far south. So we will see that cold air be able to interact with that very warm and moist air mass that's right up along the Gulf Coast states, and that should create just enough instability for a potential snowstorm to develop out of this. Now, of course, look at the forecast, how I'm going at. There's still a lot of questions that remain regarding the position of this storm system. Of course, the big thing with this storm system will be how much cold air will be associated with this storm system, because the thing is that both of the computer models are struggling to bring a strong amount of cold air with this storm system, at least as of right now, mainly because this low pressure system, like I said, it's an upper level low, so it's going to be pretty far disconnected from the main part of where the Arctic air is, as most of the cold air will be associated with the low pressure system rather than from the Arctic air that would be associated with the jet stream. So the cold air, there's that possibility it could be at limited, but we still see a very heavy amount of snowfall here throughout the Northeast as well as New England. This includes portions of the Southeast as well, where we do see Kentucky, Tennessee gets involved, and maybe even as far south as Mississippi, you could get involved with some snowfall if we were to see the cold air move this far south, as this would happen right around Thursday, December 12th to the 13th. So definitely keep that in mind going into next week. However, we do see that area of snowfall expand and get closer to some of the coastal areas where potentially New York City and Boston maybe could get involved with some snowfall in a scenario like this, as we see right here on the backside. That's where we really get to see snowfall in New York City and Boston and other Interstate 95 corridor cities, potentially like Bridgeport, Connecticut, and Providence, Rhode Island. On the backside, you could see snowfall out of this if the GFS model's scenario was 100% correct, which of course that still has yet to be seen, but there are definitely questions regarding the position of this storm system. Now, let's take a quick look at what the European model is forecasting at this time. And the European model, while it does develop a low pressure system in a very similar fashion, let me show you guys the 12Z run because that goes a little bit further into long-term future. So, like I said, the European model does develop this low pressure system in a very similar fashion. We do see this upper level low dip down into the Midwest, interacting with this warm and moist environment up along the Gulf Coast, and we do see a low pressure system develop out of this instability. However, we see that the area of snowfall is a lot more limited. It's a little bit closer to the coast, but the area of snowfall isn't as large, so this would only impact very localized areas that are right over where the snow band would develop. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And we see that in general, the storm system is weaker in the European model's scenario. And the reason why is that it's expecting it's expecting less cold air than what the GFS model is forecasting, which reduces the instability, which reduces the strength of this storm system, and of course reduces the area where you would experience heavy snowfall. However, the fact that the European model and the GFS model are both agreeing that there will be at least some sort of nor'easter that develops out of this jet stream dips makes me a little bit more inclined to believe that at least some sort of nor'easter will develop. The big question remains, how much cold air will there be associated with this low as it moves into the southeast, and of course the position of where this low develops as a big criteria for that will be where exactly this ridge is located. Of course, if this ridge is a little weaker and it's located and it's positioned a little bit further eastward, that would allow the cold air to move a little bit further eastward to where more of the coastal northeast cities would experience snowfall. However, the opposite would occur if the ridge is positioned a little bit further westward, where we would see the snowfall be a little bit more limited and would focus in a little bit further inland, closer to potentially the Midwest as well as the interior Northeast. Those are factors we're definitely going to pay close attention to. Let me show you guys a 500 millibar height anomaly because I think that gives a better indication of what exactly I'm talking about. So here's where we're at right now. Eventually this ridge will move in, but the upper level low that could become our next snowstorm is located right around this area. We see a pretty strong jet stream dip right over the Midwest, but this upper level low sort of isolates itself with it, but there's still a decent amount of cold air for the instability to intensify, for the storm system to intensify, as we do see a strong southerly flow associated with a ridge as well, which should help enhance the instability for the storm system to develop. However, a big issue that runs into is that it cuts off from the jet stream thanks to a strong ridge that builds just to the north of it. So it's pretty much on its own with nowhere to tap into that very cold Arctic air that's further northward, which would mean that for this to bring a large area of snowfall in a scenario like this, it would either need to bring a lot more cold air further southward, so once it isolates itself, it'll have enough cold air to sustain itself, not only when it comes to producing a large area of snowfall, but also producing enough instability for this storm system to be strong enough for this to be a major snowstorm. Or the other scenario would be for a ridge to pretty much become a lot weaker or almost non-existent just to the north of this storm system, to allow this storm to tap into the Arctic air that's to the north of it. That still has yet to be seen, of course. There's still 210. We're still 210 hours out. But what I could say is that there will be some sort of low pressure system that will develop into next week that could have the potential of becoming our next major storm system. Let me show you guys the GFS model scenario at the same time period, and we see a pretty big difference. We see that this upper level low is quite a bit stronger with a lot more cold air associated with it. So, and we do see, while there is a decent amount of ridging just to the north of it, preventing it from tapping into the colder air further northward, it isn't as strong, and it definitely allows the storm system to move a little bit further northward, and it already has enough cold air to be a more potent storm. So we're going to need to pay very close attention to how much cold air this storm system will actually get by the time it approaches the Midwest and eventually the East Coast. So we wouldn't get a good idea of this, I'll say, until maybe late this weekend into early next week. I'm talking about right around Sunday. That's when we'll see this upper level low move into the Rocky Mountain ranges, and we'll get a really good idea of how much cold air is really going to be surrounding this upper level low as it moves further eastward. So that still has yet to be seen. And of course, the ridging will be key. If we need to see this ridge move a little bit further eastward for this to be an impactful snow event for the Interstate 95 corridor cities. So I'll definitely keep tabs on this storm system over the next few days because there's still a lot of questions to really answer. But I'll make sure to give you guys more updates as computer models continue to adjust their forecast. Now, let's say the GFS model was 100% correct when it comes to its snowfall forecast. This would be a fairly impactful snowstorm where we'd easily see potentially over a foot of snow in much of the interior Northeast. This includes Pocono Mountain ranges. This includes much of upstate New York, including Albany, could get involved with potentially close to a foot of snow. And Boston would be right around the rain snow line in a scenario like this. And so would New York City. New York City in a scenario like this would maybe only receive an inch of snowfall. Boston, it could be very variable because you're not too far from receiving up to 10 inches of snowfall in the GFS model scenario. So it's at least still something to keep in mind for the coastal Northeast cities as well, because I still think that there's certainly that possibility you guys could receive snow out of this if we see track a little bit further eastward, or even if the GFS model scenario was completely correct. And then we see in the areas further southward, you guys get involved as well, where Nashville could get involved with 3 to 5 inches of snowfall, Kentucky, West Virginia into southwestern Ohio, and even as far south as Mississippi and Arkansas could get involved with around 1 to 3 inches of snowfall out of this. So if this were 100% correct, this would be a very significant snowstorm for millions of Americans. So make sure to stay tuned as we get more certainty with the forecast. Now, if the European model's scenario was 100% correct, we'd see less snowfall in general because, like I said, the area of snow will be much smaller, but we're definitely going to need to pay close attention to how the forecast changes over the next several days. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content.